Hello! This video is about protein synthesis. So, what is a protein? Well, if you remember in the last video, we talked about the four biomolecules, which are carbs, lipids, proteins, and the nucleic acids. So those are the four biomolecules that we've talked about in a previous video. These are the four categories of molecules that every molecule in your body fits into. There's thousands of different molecules that make up your body, but they all fit into one of these four categories. Now, the ones that we're going to be talking about today are the proteins, which are the things that are getting made, and the nucleic acids. Now, in our last video, I introduced the two nucleic acids, which were DNA and RNA. DNA and RNA actually work together to create, these guys work together to create these proteins in your body. But first of all, what is a protein? Well, a protein is just a long chain of what could be hundreds or even thousands of smaller molecules. So this entire thing is the protein. Proteins are long chains of smaller molecules called amino acids. So amino acids are the monomer, which is a single molecule that, when linked together with other monomers or amino acids, make the entire structure, which we call a protein, which is a polymer. Mono means one molecule. Polymer means many molecules. So a protein is a chain of many molecules, which we call amino acids. So what do proteins do in your body? Well, proteins do thousands of different jobs. In one of our previous videos, I mentioned that proteins are like the people of the earth. There are lots of different kinds of people, and they all do different jobs, and they all work together. All those jobs work together to keep the whole system running. And that's what proteins do. So there's a whole lot of different kinds. We can't talk about all the different kinds, but we're just going to talk about proteins in general and how they're made. So here's what the overall process of protein synthesis looks like. It all starts with DNA. And if you'll recall, DNA is what we call a double helix structure. It's a twisted ladder. It has two backbones that twist around each other and are stuck together in the middle by nucleotide bases. So we have DNA, and if we were to untwist DNA, it wouldn't be a twisted ladder, it would just be a ladder. But remember that between these two ladders here, this is one backbone, this is another backbone, so it has two backbones. They're each made up of a phosphate and a sugar molecule. If you don't remember any of this, you got to go back to the last video about DNA, the intro to DNA and RNA. This will all make more sense. You can't skip around. You really need to go in order, unless you already know it. But the backbone is made up of a phosphate and a sugar molecule, and these little guys here are actually what we call bases. And DNA has 4. They are G, C, A, and T, or GCAT. And everywhere there's a G, across from it there will be a C. And everywhere there's an A, across from it there will be a T. Those are called the base pairing rules. We talked about that last time as well. But this is where it starts. And all of these letters it means something very specific. So this is actually a code, and you're going to learn how to read this and decode it in order to build a protein. But this is where it starts with DNA. Now that DNA gets rewritten as a strand of RNA. And this process of rewriting the instructions in DNA into a strand of RNA is called transcription. RNA, remember, is kind of like DNA. It's kind of spirally, but it's only got 1 strand instead of 2. But it also has these little bases. Well, it has the backbone that's made up of phosphate and sugar. And then it's also got bases, but its bases are a little different. It's got G, C, A, and U. Those are the 4 bases that make up RNA versus G, C, A, and T. That'll make more sense in a minute why that is. So DNA and RNA is called transcription, and then this RNA gets rewritten, or I'm sorry, translated into a protein. So DNA to RNA is transcription. That's step 1 of the whole process. And then turning RNA into a protein, or I shouldn't say turning it into a protein, I should say reading the instructions and then building a protein from the instructions, is called translation, and that is the 2nd step of the process. And remember, a protein is just a chain of smaller molecules called amino acids, all linked together. And there are a variety of different proteins, and they all do different jobs. And when I say different jobs, I mean pretty much everything. Anything that gets done in your body, just like anything that gets done on planet Earth, gets done by workers making it happen. And the proteins are the workers of your body. So I'm actually going to stop there. That's a good intro into the process of protein synthesis. Step 1, transcription. Step 2, translation. DNA to RNA, RNA to a protein. We did a good reminder of what's what in terms of the DNA and the bases and RNA. Now in the next video, we're going to get into the details about specifically what exactly is going on in here, and we're going to actually build our own protein.